Hi class, so today we are actually going to elaborate more on what we've been talking about the past week about the Bill of Rights. So what everybody should know so far is a little bit of what the Bill of Rights are, the kind of like what the meaning is. So the First Amendment is your freedom of religion, speech, press, so what you're able to do with that. The second one would be the right to bear arms, so what you're able to do with owning guns and being able to protect yourself. So now what we are going to do is we're going to go ahead and do a little lesson just to kind of see and elaborate a little bit more on a few of those, a few of the rights. Okay, so for the objective, the student understands the fundamental rights of American citizens guaranteed in the Bill of Rights, and the student will be able to describe the fundamental rights guaranteed by each amendment in the Bill of Rights, including first, second, and fourth. Now, during this time, I want to go ahead and let you guys know to kind of just be thinking about this in the back of your head. So it's an essential question. So what makes a right a right? Now, if you have kind of forgotten what the Bill of Rights are, or if you kind of just do need a brush up on it, what you can do is I can send in some links for you guys on the video. I can go ahead and try to see if I can put them in the video. If not, it'll go ahead and kind of be listed under. But we can go to the links and kind of just see what, kind of like an overview of the Bill of Rights and kind of see what we can do there. And then kind of just brush up on what each of them means. And we can go ahead and, once you do that, once you can kind of go at your own pace and understand what we're going through, then you can kind of hop back on this video and I can show you some examples of how I want you to do the objective, and then we can go ahead and get started. So for the objective, I said that I wanted you guys to describe the fundamental rights guaranteed by each amendment of the Bill of Rights, including the first, second, and the fourth. So if you don't really understand what that means, I'm going to go ahead and give you some examples on how I want you to describe the rights for this. Okay, so like I did say, I want you guys to go ahead and describe the fundamental rights guaranteed by each amendment in the Bill of Rights, including the first, second, and fourth. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to give you some examples of the third and the eighth, just to kind of show you what you need to do and what I want you to go ahead and do. So right now this is going to be the example for the third one. So it says, in the Bill of Rights, it says, no soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner described by law. So what I want you to do is have it written down on one side, and then on the other side, I want you to go ahead and kind of write down what that means. So for this one, what it means is back then, when these were written down, during times of war, the soldiers would go into civilians' houses and, pretty much without consent, pretty much without, can I come in, can I do this? No. They were basically told to go in there and live there without the person either saying yes or no. And because of that, you did have to agree whether you wanted to or not. And these soldiers, a lot of them were not very nice to the people that were providing their houses. So they went ahead and put in a right saying that no soldiers are going to be allowed to do that, basically without consent, basically without the other person's approval. So what I want you to do is kind of describe what that means. So I'll put here, like no soldier is allowed in a home without respect, consent, and I guess consent is kind of like approval, but yeah, no soldiers allowed in a home without respect or consent, and let's see. We can kind of keep it like that. Yeah, I mean, we can go ahead and keep it that way. So the Third Amendment, I want you to break it down and describe it in your own words. What do you think it means for the first, second, and the fourth? So for this one, be no soldiers allowed in the home without respect and consent. Now, consent means basically approval. So you're not allowed to go into that person's house without the approval by the person, by the homeowner. And you also have to make sure you go in with respect. You're going to respect the people that are providing you with a home, and you're going to make sure that you are, respected or respectful. Okay, so next example is going to be for the Eighth Amendment. So what we did for the third one was we went ahead and wrote out word for word the amendment, and then we kind of broke it down on what we thought it meant. So we're kind of just describing what it meant. If you want to kind of help you out, just if needed, you can go ahead and you can kind of underline, certain words. So you can kind of underline, let's see, if you don't understand what a word is, you can kind of underline it, and then kind of, put over here what you think it means. And then when you kind of do that, you can kind of piece it all together to figure out what you think it means. So for this example, it's going to be the Eighth Amendment. So what I'm going to go ahead and just kind of show you a little bit help if needed, kind of like that. So for the Eighth Amendment, it says excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishment inflicted. So what we can do, let's say, we can kind of underline excessive bail, not required. We can put excessive fines imposed, and then what we can do is inflicted. So no punishment inflicted. So kind of to break that down, let's see, excessive bail, excessive fines, and punishment. So let's see. So for here, excessive bails. Excessive bail shall not be required. So if we decide to, or if we're trying to figure out what that means, well, excessive bail, if you think of it today, when somebody goes into jail and they say the bail is set at $5,000, that pretty much means that the person is going to be in jail in their holding part until you can pay that money of the $5,000 to take them out. So back then it was an excessive amount of money. So back then we'll say that $5,000 was a lot to them. So they went ahead and said no excessive bail. Let me put no excessive bail. So basically saying we're not going to allow that much money to pull somebody out because that number is outrageous. That money nobody has except if you're like super, super rich back then. So they pretty much said no excessive bail. If you have to bail somebody out, make it reasonable, but not too reasonable and easy for anybody to bail out the person, because if they are a criminal who really needed to be in jail, like most criminals do, you don't want to make it too easy for them to just be able to be back on the streets, For the fines imposed, no fines imposed. So like no excessive fines imposed. So when let's say when you get a ticket, when you're being, like speeding ticket, those tickets usually about $250 to $300. Let's say again back then, $250 to $300 was a lot and is excessive. So they want to make sure that they don't have super excessive fines imposed, meaning fines. What is the word for imposed? So pretty much signs like they don't want any fines imposed. So they don't want that many fines there to kind of affect them. So let's say back then you got a fine for let's what would be a good example? I guess maybe drinking in public. You can get fined today for doing that. But back then, if you were drinking in public and you were intoxicated or drunk, you would get fined. So, and those super excessive fines would be $200-$300, maybe even $400. Just an example. I mean, it's probably not even that much. But back then, to them, that was a lot. So they don't want that kind of fines imposed. So they don't want that. Now, for cruel and unusual punishment, back then, let's see, cruel, unusual. Now for, there it is. Now for cruel and unusual, back then, they would tar and feather you if you got in trouble. And tar and feather, they would actually throw the tar on you, and then really hot tar that would stick to your skin, and then when you try to peel it off, it would basically just peel off your skin. Very cruel and unusual. And then they would go ahead and as an added bonus, they would go ahead and throw feathers on you, so you look like a chicken. So tar and feather. They have that. They had the electric chair, where they would put you in the electric chair and shock you. They just did a lot of cruel and unusual punishments, and those are kind of like two examples that I can go ahead and explain to you guys. Another one could be where they would actually hang you, which was a very cruel and unusual punishment. They used to do that to people who they thought, or women who they thought were witches, as well as thieves, adulterers. You'll learn about that later, but just things of that nature. So they wanted to go ahead and say no more cruel and unusual punishment. So we don't want that. If you're going to punish us, throw us in jail and only give us 3 meals a day. Fine us our money, take away our driver's license, take away, something. Like today, you'll take away your driver's license, you'll have an ankle monitor so you can't go a certain area. They'll have restraining orders so you can't go to a certain person. So kind of just those cruel and unusual punishments, they wanted to go ahead and wipe those out and kind of put in what we have today. So they wanted to go ahead and take that away. So for the 8th Amendment altogether, it basically just means we don't want excessive bills, excessive bails, my bad. Excessive bails, excessive fines, and no cruel or unusual punishment. So, once you kind of break it down that way, then you have an understanding. We don't want to be treated like we don't have that money, because we don't. And, we'll never be able to get out of jail. We'll never be able to get anything back if we lost it because of these excessive bills and fines. Cruel and unusual punishment. Yes, if we get in trouble, definitely punish us how we need to be. But don't punish us excessively. Don't punish us very cruel, humiliating, scary type punishments. Okay, so now it's your turn to go ahead and do what I kind of just did here. So I want you to go ahead and pretty much describe the fundamental rights guarded by each amendment, pretty much what I did here in the Bill of Rights. You're going to be doing the first one, the second one, and the fourth one. Now the first one is, there's about a few different ones, so we'll go ahead and say, there's like a lot of them multiplied into there. So we'll go ahead and, let's see, for the first one we will do freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and freedom of the press. So for the first one, you're going to kind of break it up into 3 different ones. So freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and freedom of press. Now, for my more advanced students, what I want you to kind of go ahead and do is if you can do all 3 of them, the second one, the fourth one, and if you wanted to add about 2 other amendments, not the ones that I explained on the board though. So for you guys, if this seems a little bit too easy, maybe go for the 5th or 6th Amendment, the trial by jury, or the speedy trial. Try to see if you want to go with those ones. For my students who necessarily kind of don't really understand it, or just still kind of, think that that may be too much, maybe I'll just go ahead and have you do the first and the second one. So you can do the First Amendment with the freedom of religion, speech, and press. And then you can do the second one, which is the right to bear arms. So you only have to do 2 of those 3. Everybody else, first, second, and fourth. If you want to go ahead and go advanced, do first, second, fourth, fifth, and sixth, if you want to do that, or 9 and 10, just whatever you want to do. But that's our lesson, and I want that to be turned in, let's see, today's Wednesday, so possibly by next Tuesday before class. So